Welcome traders, I'm Adam Harris, Chief Market Analyst, and this is for the week commencing Monday the 29th of July. So believe it or not, we will finish the week in August with non-farm payrolls. So that's going to be the big finish at the end of the week. It feels, honestly, to me like it was just a week ago when I was saying we were going to get NFP for July, but there you have it. The year is just blazing by. So again, US economy is doing just fine. No real concerns that I have about that. I always kind of tend to pay attention to ADP, expecting some disruption in the markets during that time. Crude oil inventories, again, this is crude oil is very boring at the moment. And obviously it's on the tail end of its lifespan. So that could be over the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. Crude oil is not just used obviously in vehicles and cars, but it's used in a variety of other ways. But it certainly is losing a big market share over time. We'll see what happens as we tend towards other renewable energy sources. So now, we've got FOMC. I would pay attention to that as well. Again, look, the rule of thumb is, it amazes me how often I encounter people on Twitter. Well, it shouldn't be a surprise on Twitter, I guess, but a number of people who don't seem to understand the core purpose of rate hikes and rate cuts. Remember that the primary purpose of a rate cut is to cool inflation. That is, it is used most often to do that. And a rate hike a rate hike is to cool inflation. A rate cut is to stimulate the economy. Those are the primary kind of purposes for which these are engaged. And so if an economy is doing well and inflation is under control, there is no reason to do a rate cut. Okay, there's no reason, there's no stimulation required, there's no reason to do it. All right, so it's just that simple. Now, so my expectation is for now, unless they say that, there's some information that I am not aware of that says, look, we need to stimulate something here or there, I don't expect any rate cuts. It doesn't make sense. In fact, there could still be a reason if they feel that some inflation hasn't come under control, they could still get rate hikes. So that's really what I'd be paying attention to. But the US economy is on fire right now. It's just doing so well. And then we've got the UK, so I'll be paying attention here. I want to see what happens with the BOE, if there's anything they're going to do on this side of the pond. And there's a suggestion possibly that there might be a change that would be a good thing to kind of curve or cool inflation here. So the UK is always a little bit behind in terms of the G7. So that will I'll pay some attention to that. And then we've got obviously PMI data out of the US, but really then the focus will be on market disruption and price disruption when we get towards Friday. So, and all of that kind of makes sense. Just be aware that as we head towards Friday, that's likely where the market is. Well, it wouldn't be a surprise to see price on the majors against the US dollar heading towards major levels in anticipation of getting there by Friday or ahead of Friday in anticipation of, just market movements. So that being said, let's go and have a look at the charts. Okay, so here looking at the VIX in terms of volatility, we're still sitting near the lows. You can see we've started to push up towards the highs a little bit here. We've got that bullish divergence on the MACD. We're just looking a little bit as though we're overdue for a bit more of a spike, but at the moment we're still sitting very much near the lows. And in fact, given all the things we've been through in the last couple of years, again, this really does still lean more towards the economy, or at least the S&P as well, being stable. And it's not really hinting at any volatility. And again, we can often get a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there where as soon as you have a big week, everybody starts talking about how the sky is falling, and it just doesn't really work that way. But I suppose it does get them clicks, and so that's what they quite like. Now, so I'm not really expecting much from that. Let's have a look at the dollar index. Dollar index, as I said, is still trying to stay above this 103 level. Still trying to find support in this area. So we did break above the high, but we haven't done much in the last week. The market is still kind of trapped below that 50-period moving average. So this week I want to see if we do continue down, close below the low here, or if we manage to break up above that and start to get that stronger dollar. Then we look against euro dollar. You can see now it's really pushing up against these high lows, high highs, back up towards at least that downward sloping trend line. We're still within the wedge, so we could see a breakout by the end of the week. That is a possibility if this trend maintains, or we could see a change in the other direction. We could see it starting to head a little bit lower. Then we have a look at cable. So just because we're stuck where we're getting a lot of mixed signals as well. So this is why usually I'm able to say, look, the dollar looks as though it's going to strengthen. But also when it comes to NFP, we can often see that by the time we get to Friday and the way that the market closes next week will give us more clarity as to what I would expect next week to do. But this week could be a little bit of a crapshoot. So Again, we've got an uptrend here with sterling, so I'll be looking to see if we do get a bullish candle this week and a continuation. If we don't, that would then be that dollar coming in and kicking us lower. So we'll see if that's going to be the case. Aussie dollar against US dollar has broken to the downside. Still no clear trend here. We were in an uptrend. We've come straight down. We've broken the lows here, so no clear trend for Aussie dollar against the US dollar. Kiwi dollar here breaking right down, so both Aussie and Kiwi looking quite weak at the moment against that US dollar. And actually, if you look at it here from a monthly perspective, it does look as though we're potentially looking to test support and possibly that we might break down a little bit further. So makes sense right now that we'll just see a continuation down for a little bit further, at least down to any major levels that are close to where price is now. Dollar yen. So dollar yen has had a really good continuation to the downside this week. We've got that nice monthly retracement in play coming into the highs. So the question will then be, will this coming week produce us, will we get a nice bullish green candle? That could then give us a hint as though we're going to get that stronger dollar as well. And then we have a look, for example, dollar Swissy looks as though that's very much set to continue. So, you know, there was a time when the Swiss franc was the inverse sort of correlation of euro dollar. So euro dollar, dollar Swissy tended to be inversely correlated. That isn't or hasn't been the case for a few years now, but we could see here dollar Swissy look as though it wants to hit a little bit lower. I think the Swiss, if it was up to them, to the S&P, they would rather not have their currency move around that much, just keep it where it is. But that isn't always how things work. We can see here dollar CAD breaking out to the upside here. So some of those CAD crosses have been looking very nice and bullish. In fact, what I should do here is quickly have a look and switch across to the Swissy pairs. So I spoke a lot about where I was expecting the Swissy pairs to turn around, and actually where I was looking for that, they've continued to move a little bit further down. Let me just go quickly have a look at a few of the others. Aussie Swissy, for example, breaking right down. So that's a combination of the Aussie pairs and Swissy pairs. This is very rare. This is actually the first time where, with the exception of, which I'll speak about in a moment, which looking at natural gas, where it produces really strong bullish reversal signals and then just continues lower. Those are the only two where I've seen that. In every other single case in my experience, it's always gone the other way. So yeah, this is very rare, but it is the case. Nevertheless, we could see Kiwi Swissy and Aussie Swissy coming right down to these support levels and starting to fail to do that reversal, which they were giving a very strong signal for. Looking at pound signal, pound Swissy here, also still producing high lows, but now sort of forming a little bit of a wedge there. So that hasn't reversed, and I was looking for reversal in this area, so that hasn't done it. And again, it's also unusual for me to read the markets wrong, and it's not so much that I've read them wrong, it is just that the markets don't always unfold the way that they signal that they intend to do that. So I hate to say that that sounds like an excuse, but yeah, in this particular case, I'm still leaving some room to see if we do see that reversal. And as I said, natural gas is the only other time I've seen that not really follow, especially when the signals are so strong. We've got that bullish divergence, we've got price breaking above the 50, we've got all these different things. There's a whole lot of stuff happening here. So I want to see if this does indeed start to break below these lows, which then I would just say, okay, you know, that analysis has to be binned, or if we actually maintain it and reverse. All right, so, but for now, yeah, the Swissy pair is not looking that good. The yen pair is, however, still pretty much staying on track for a bigger correction, much overdue, so you can see this across the board. I think it's safe to say that we're breaking the lows on the weekly, and therefore this is a monthly retracement, and so I'd be looking for the monthly pairs, the yen pairs, to turn around here in the moving averages, and we'll see if that's going to be the case. That usually then implies we'll have to see what happens during August or potentially during September. But the CAD pairs have been looking quite bullish. Go ahead and have a look at, say, Euro CAD breaking to the upside, dollar CAD breaking to the upside. Let's have a look at pound CAD, GBP CAD also breaking to the upside. So right now, some of those CAD crosses are looking very good. The Swissy pairs have failed and stumbled, and the yen pairs are finally having the correction that we've been waiting for, because the Bank of Japan have been threatening intervention and all kinds of different policy changes in order to get that reversed. Right, let's continue. Let's go back onto where we were. So that was dollar CAD is where I was. Let's move on and have a look at gold. So gold is still stuck within its range at the moment. Certainly on the weekly, we produced that strong rejection. We've come down a little bit lower. I still say with the higher lows, we could see this work towards a breakout. We've got a nice little bullish candle here. We could see it continue. But remember, the contradiction last week was the exhaustion showing up on the monthly time frame, plus the weekly doing a consolidation, which could lead to a breakout. And so that just is giving us two conflicting signals. We've got silver now, looks as though that's finally sort of relenting. You can see the exhaustion on those monthly wicks finally relenting and coming back down. All it really has to do is to sort of correct down towards that $26 level, and then it can resume. Okay, so natural gas, I was talking about how for a very long time, natural gas keeps producing these bullish divergent sort of signals, similar to what I've been talking about on the Swissy crosses, and it just continues lower. So this is the kind of thing that is a very fair possibility with the Swissy pairs. It's very rare, so rare that it is something I don't often consider, but it is a reality though. So we'll see if the Swissy pairs do the same thing here, where they kind of get prepared, try to reverse, and then ultimately just continue down. Then we've got light crude, which again, we can see this is still stuck within its, so this isn't really going to go away. I think that there's a very high probability that until we get closer towards the election and until it's very clear, so, it looks here sort of, 50-50 as to which way the election outcome is going is going to unfold. At the moment, we know that how do I sort of explain this in a very simple fashion? You've got one side, the Republican side, which has said they won't accept the results unless they win. They attempted, fake electors, fake slate of electors, which a lot of people are going to jail for. They attempted not to count votes. They basically attempted to overthrow the last election. So we know that they're going to attempt to do it this time. There's lots of them threatening to say that there's lots of things they have in the works that nobody knows about. We know that the Supreme Court has now given Trump immunity for things such as attempting to overthrow the election. So there's all kinds of crazy things happening at the moment. But we also know that from a voting perspective, we actually know that there's way more people who want democracy, who want to vote for that. And we can see, especially with brand new registrations, there's an insane turnout in new registrations over the last week. We can see that there is a massive lean towards democracy. So on a purely honest-based election, we're going to see that it's going to be a blowout for the Democrats. In other words, democracy is going to win. We've seen this in other elections throughout the year. The majority of them have leaned clearly Democratic. So statistically and probability-wise, the US is going to definitely go that way. But we also know that the other side is going to attempt to overthrow the election. So this is where that uncertainty comes in. And so therefore, unless for some reason it becomes abundantly clear somehow now that there's no doubt that the one side is going to win, I wouldn't expect the breakout to occur until the actual results of the election start to come through. And one of the things that we're expecting a lot of legal suits to be thrown by the Republicans if they don't get the results they want. They're going to attempt effectively to sue and attempt to sue in particular states and not accept the new president in certain states. They won't acknowledge it. And they're going to try and bump it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, which is highly corrupt, will potentially try to throw it for them. So there's going to be a lot of attempts. I think the best thing they can do right now is to overhaul the Supreme Court before the election, effectively balance the numbers, either expand the Supreme Court, add in 2 or 3 more justices to make sure that if 2 or 3 of those Supreme Court justices are corrupt, that their votes won't be able to turn the election. And of course, that's certainly the case. There's no reason why the election should go to the Supreme Court. There's no reason why it should do that, because again, they found, what was it, 0.00006% false or election fraud in the last election, and like 99% of that was Republicans. So really, there's only one party that we need to be concerned about, and I say that if we globally, we need to be concerned about that. Right, moving on. Don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's move on. West Texas again. So we're just kind of stuck within this wedge. Not a lot happening with this. Not super sexy. Not super interesting. Let's have a look at the global indices. They continue to show quite a bit of strength. So we can see here the Dow forming this kind of generally bullish breakout pattern. I was speaking last week about whether we were going to get a bit of that correction. You can see that the Dow has continued to push up. So certainly at this point in time, the Dow is not concerned with starting to head lower just yet. Really, what I want to do is see what happens towards the tail end of August and September, which makes more sense. Here you can see, for example, the S&P has started a deeper retracement and a potential. If we finish lower by Friday, yes, we could see a bit of a correction. And that could still stay in place throughout September and then turn around for October. And that would just make it seasonal. That would just make it sort of cyclical in the same way that it has done for most of the months for the last 100 years. So the Nasdaq as well, let's see, continuing to head a little bit lower here. So I've highlighted this area. If it is going to turn around in this area on the weekly, this is the nice place for it to do it. But if that monthly is starting a bit of a correction, we could see the monthly heading down towards the moving averages here, down towards 18,000 and so on. And it would do that and probably start to come out of that before the end of October, if it's going to follow through on that cyclicity. Then we've got the mini Russell breaking out fully out of this consolidation. So I think if you agree with me, we are going to remove this. We don't need this anymore. We can get rid of that. And it is looking fantastic. I'm very happy to see that. And again, that's another sign, ladies and gentlemen, that we are in a beautiful bull market. We're finally seeing a consolidation breakout. I mean, I guess we could have it come back in and fail to break out. That could happen. We could see August come back in, September come back in, and then October breakout. We could see that kind of thing happening. But for now, I take this again as further confirmation of seeing that a bullish breakout. FTSE also looking really good here, staying above this level. A little bit of a failed breakout here and a reversal looking very good. So I want to see this break above this level. So I just want to mark this in. That is the level I want to see us get out of. So we really appear to have closed above that. And look at this beautiful pullback and a really nice bullish setup over there. Okay, so if we close this month, that is a beautiful break and a retest with a bullish candle off of support. Beautiful. In the moving averages, that could be a beautiful buy opportunity there. So that is very nice. I'll write a piece about that on investing.com this week. The DAX, German DAX. We spoke about this. If it's going to retrace, it'll come back down here before consolidating and moving up, but it looks as though it wants to do a consolidation and a breakout. So still looking good at this time. As in, still looking good to still staying the course. Here we've got a really nice breakout and a pullback, and so on the ASX, a nice little bullish candle in this area could see a continuation to the upside. One of the things I really want to highlight here, ladies and gentlemen, is that aside from the S&P, the NASDAQ, and possibly the Dow, most of the other indices are looking really bullish at this time. So they're performing differently from the US indices, and that is an incredibly rare thing. Again, in the 15 years I've been doing this, plus obviously all the backtesting and prior history, it's very unusual to see the non-US indices doing their own thing and not completely following suit, especially when the US indices are bearish. Then usually everybody else follows suit. So it's looking good. Again, I find that's a really positive sign. It's almost as though there's a little bit more independence from the US economy. And there we go. So here we've got the Nikkei. So the Nikkei having that very strong bearish engulfing candle to the downside. So this is hinting at, this would hint at a deeper correction. So potentially coming down towards, say, 35,000 before recovering and going. The MACD looks nice and bullish, but that is a very strong reaction against off of that 40,000 level. And so I would expect to see this head a little bit further, then regroup, and then potentially by the end of the year come back up towards these highs. So let's see how that ultimately plays out. Let's go and quickly have a look at the HK. Okay, so quickly having a look at the HK. So I spoke before about how this was a high probability reversal, or at least buying opportunity here. It hasn't broken above the high, which is the final kind of follow through I'd like to see. Instead, we've sort of continued back down. So what I'll be looking for is if there is that possibility for price to reverse in this area. Let me just go mark that, and let's see if we find some support in this area before finding support and then working their way back up from that. But for now, not too concerned about it. I think once we start to break below these lows, those here, I would then be more concerned. Let's just see if it finds support in this area. But those are the early stages of a nice little bullish setup there. And once we break back up above that, then I would be in no doubt that we're going to start to resume and see a bit more of a bull market happening and in the Hang Seng, and at least on that side of the world. Okay, let's go through these equities, individual stocks of interest as well. You can see here we continue to have high lows. I'm expecting Anheuser-Busch to continue to push back up towards that level of resistance, which will ultimately lead to a breakout to the upside. Apple doing a very nice, well-deserved correction down towards sort of the 210 area, possibly down towards 200. We'll see how the month closes. Again, a strong rejection there would imply a deeper correction, but for now it's pulling back into this area. That should be a very nice, healthy one. So I'm going to get rid of this. We don't need this one there anymore, and now I'm going to just add another one in this area and see if we ultimately get our reversal in this area. That'll be a very nice, healthy correction. Let's move on and have a look at Amazon. So Amazon here, from a monthly perspective, you can see it's sort of just kicking, just sort of treading water, continuing to come back down to these highs. You can see where it's broken above that and test support. So anywhere in this area can ultimately find support. And again, I've got to take all of this into consideration as we head towards September and October, where I would still be expecting many of the individual charts to be doing a deeper correction as they would this time of year. AT&T battling with resistance over here, not really going anywhere, so we could see a bit of a correction a little bit lower. We've got ASML. Again, this one makes sense to me. We're back down at levels of support where we are now, but and again, this is also a very good area for it to find support. So I'll keep an eye on that. Again, that bull market not really going anywhere at this time. Just looking to see when we get that nice reversal. Glencore, stuck within its range, has not managed to break out of it. I'm just going to expand this again and keep it there. And then we've got Tesco. Tesco looking good. Really very, very nice behavior. Very orderly at the moment. So very nice, happy and healthy. Then we've got Amex. Continuing to just tick up as we go. I'm okay with that. Looks pretty good. We've got Berkshire Hathaway also looking very good at the moment. That's broken out of this ascending triangle. We can remove this. We don't need this anymore. Clean up as we go. Now I'd be looking for any kind of pullbacks on this. And I think also we've broken through that. I think possibly here I might just add this in as a previous level of resistance and see if we get a pullback to this at some point. Then we've got Coca-Cola. Let me just save this. Looking good, on fire, really, really good. That has no doubt helped Berkshire Hathaway. Let's have a look at the crude oil energy companies. We've got BP just trying to stay at that level of support. Didn't really do much this week, stayed inside bullish candle. We've got Exxon as well continuing to climb higher. So yeah, there's definitely a little bit of buying interest in both of those where they still look like they want to push higher. So we could see that move a little bit higher this coming week. Estee Lauder, no reversal at this point. I've just left that in. That a small bullish candle this week, small, tiny, not enough just yet to change anything. General Motors, finally have a big correction. When you have a big correction like this, that is almost certainly a monthly correction. You can see a strong rejection of that level, the 50 level, but also here, very likely to come back down towards that 40 level. So let's see how that plays out. JP Morgan, looks good. No concerns over there. That should just continue to keep going up. QQQ, nice little correction down here. This could be leading towards a monthly retracement. So all of these, some of these, sorry, not all of these, some of these showing that potential for a bit of a deeper correction. This is looking very good. Adidas now managing to push and break out to the upside there. Looking good. Meta, big correction here, so battling with its level of resistance in this area. So for now, expect it to stay in this area. Morgan Stanley actually managed last week to close up a little bit higher despite that rejection, but I think it's worthwhile marking this level over here. I still think that is potentially a key price level, and we need to see if we can get past that this coming week. We've got NVIDIA doing a very nice correction, setting up, to me, it looks as though we could be setting up towards that monthly retracement. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just mark this area here as our upper level of resistance. We could see this do a bit of a correction down towards that level. And we'll see if it comes down a little bit further, but certainly down towards that 87 mark. Then we've got Netflix, which is also battling with its historical high here. I think what I want to do here is just move this one up to there. There we go. So just make use of that. And we can see it's battling almost with that 700 area. We'll see if we get a bit of a correction. But this area as well is where I want to be paying attention to it, because if it's going to turn, this is a great place for it to do that. Right, PayPal. Just continually testing the lows here, looking as though that is going to possibly even head back down below these lows here. We'll see if that's going to be the case, but it's still stuck in a range. I'm looking for a red breakout candle or a strong green candle to give me some clues to that. Right now, we just have to see how it handles that, the bottom end of the range. Spotify really battling to get up above this level, really battling, continuing to tick up on the monthly, but now starting to struggle. For sure, this looks as though we're going to see a bit of a correction. So you can see increase in wicks here, and you can see that bearish divergence starting to creep in. This usually leads to a correction to the downside. So wouldn't surprise me if we did see a break and a move down a little bit lower. We'll see if we're going to get that. Then SPDR. Continuing to tick up, looks beautiful on the monthly. Very, very nice. Solid close so far above that 50-period moving average. That usually would imply we're going to keep going. If it can definitely, this week close above that. FedEx. So FedEx looking fine, just a bit exhausted. Big move here, not really doing much over here. Usually either just going to consolidate until the moving averages catch up with it, or it's going to do a bit of a correction. Tesla, let's have a look at Tesla. So Tesla, at the moment, coming back down to testing this sort of 210 area, 211 area, which is this level I've highlighted here. Could it go further? Sure, it could, but for now, my primary target is for it to test this level, and then we'll see if we get a bullish reaction off that, and if it's going to stay above that 50-period moving average or not. We'll see if that's going to be the case. Vanguard, beautiful behavior, really nice correction here. This is starting to look a little bit exhausted, but this looks really good. So there is a fair possibility, fair to medium, we might see a reversal on the weekly. So remember, the issue now is, are we getting a weekly correction or a monthly correction? And to me, the monthly makes a lot of sense because of, as I keep talking about September, but it's not a guarantee. It's just highly probable. It's happened way more often than it hasn't in the past. And so there's a fair chance it's going to happen. But I'm highlighting both because the stronger the weekly, the more probabilities lie that we'll get a shallower retracement on that, but not a guarantee. And then we've got Walt Disney, which continues to head lower. So this has obviously almost certainly not decided to reverse in that area, and is coming back down towards these lows. So this, it's interesting to me that, we've got a few on my list here that are inherently weak, such as Spotify or Arc Innovative, for example, here, where they just can't really turn themselves around. We've had a few that have. So Netflix did turn itself around from the bear market, did manage to recover, climb all the way back up. But as I said, Walt Disney still not able to do it. And of course, what's interesting now is they tend to follow each other, their behaviors with these streaming services. So now that Amazon has said, well, we're going to put ads in, even though you are paying for ad-free content, we're going to inject ads into it. I can see Disney, I hear now Disney is intending to do the same thing, which defeats the whole point of a subscription service, people. But anyway, all right, bonds. So bonds continuing to push upwards. Okay, so this is the 10-year continuing to push upwards. And this is, I haven't seen this kind of bullishness in a while. It doesn't mean that it's a permanent shift, but it is just commenting that that is looking nice and bullish there. So there's some interest in those. And it could be something as simple as that a lot of people whose portfolios are very stocks heavy are feeling that the stock markets have been going up quite a bit, and they are looking to diversify, so they're looking to go across to treasuries and get some of that. This looks like a very messy sort of Batman upside down bat ears and a bat wing, I guess you could call it that, upside down head and shoulders. We could see a reversal happening here. So this is looking very nice. So Eurobond looking very nice, and my expectation is that's going to continue to the upside there. It's a head and shoulders over here, but over here it's got a little bit more of an upside down bat. It's pretty cool. Okay, that's not a real official pattern, by the way. I'm just saying it looks like a bat. All right, Bitcoin recovered really well, guys. I'm very happy with this. So far looking really good. Nice, beautiful correction. If anything, this is setting up for a continuation on the monthly to the upside. Very good. We'll see if if the stocks get bearish over the coming weeks, we could see if that impacts them. But so far, they're looking pretty good. Even Ethereum managing to hold above this area so far. Didn't have as good a week as Bitcoin, but let's just see how they play out over the coming weeks. Binance as well did okay, stayed where it was. We could see Solana starting to push a little bit higher and finishing on Cardano, just managing to bounce a little bit. We could see a high low. We could see a high low there and see it continue up. Otherwise, looks okay. So crypto's holding up better than expected. Bitcoin especially still doing very well there. Solana not doing too badly, and Ethereum sort of lagging a little bit. And then Walt Disney, I want to see a couple of these turnarounds. So again, the CAD pair is looking nice and bullish for day traders. CAD pairs could offer some really good moves. The indices are giving some mixed results. US indices versus non-US indices, I think we need to keep an eye on those. And then again, that would be interesting to see if individual, London stocks versus US stocks get those different mixed results. Gold and silver, we could see silver head a little bit lower before it turns around, and then really waiting to see what happens with that US dollar. But if you're sensing like me that there is this indecision around the US dollar, the only thing that could really be holding that up is the election, which makes complete sense. Okay, so if you're looking for a clear fundamental signal or sign that the markets are waiting for something, that is what they're waiting for. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to wish you a wonderful week, and I will see you next week.